Are you thinking of beginning biblical Greek, learning biblical Greek? You're not sure what to expect perhaps? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the major challenges that beginning Greek will provide you and give you some tips to overcome those challenges. All that coming up in just a moment. Learning biblical Greek is not a trivial undertaking. It's going to take a lot of work. There is a good reason why a lot of people start to learn biblical Greek and then give up. And a number of other people learn biblical Greek and then forget it all. It's not easy. It's a difficult challenge to overcome. But if you know what some of those challenges are ahead of time and you can start to prepare for those, you're going to be in a good position not only to complete beginning Greek, but to master Greek all the way through. And that's what I'm here to help you with, really, is to help you to master biblical Greek. So in this video, I'm going to talk about really three core challenges, or three ways, if you like, that learning beginning Greek will challenge you. And in each of these different ways that it challenges you, there's a number of subsections. I'm going to talk about each of those different ways that those challenges manifest themselves. And I'm going to share with you some tips to overcome some of those challenges as well. So this video is all about making sure you've got the right expectations going into beginning Greek. The first area you're going to need to think about, and the first way that biblical Greek is going to challenge you, it's going to challenge the way you think about yourself. You see, as we grow up, we develop a way of thinking about ourselves based on the way we handle different things. Now, the different things vary from one person to another, and the result is that we end up getting a degree of proficiency or whatever it is in a particular area, a degree of confidence, a way of thinking about ourselves. And beginning Greek has an interesting way of kind of shattering the way we tend to think about ourselves based on those previous experiences. Perhaps one of the major ways this comes out is that a lot of people, as they begin their jobs and start to get into the workforce, they develop a degree of proficiency with one particular, shall we say, skill set. You might become an accountant or you might become a builder, and you'll develop a proficiency in that particular area. Your proficiency in that area starts to influence subtly your approach to other things as well. And you end up, well, there's going to be a certain number of things that you're going to learn pretty quickly and then other things that are going to be difficult. So for instance, if you find yourself as a builder doing pretty well at building, and then you come to biblical Greek, well, that's going to be totally different. And so it's right to expect that the expectations you have for yourself as a builder aren't necessarily going to apply to biblical Greek. But a lot of students, they come in and they expect that same degree of proficiency and they apply it to biblical Greek. And so the first thing you want to think about and realize is that you can't expect perfection. You can't expect that when you learn any given chapter of any given workbook or grammar, that you are going to have a high degree of proficiency or even perfection in that particular area before you move on to the next one. It wasn't that way when you first picked up your first SAW or accounting P&L or whatever it was, right? You're learning these things as you go, and over time you develop the skill. It's the same with Greek. You can't come to Greek and expect perfection. When you get to the end of one chapter, it's going to be fuzzy. Expect that. That's normal. Don't expect perfection as you start learning biblical Greek. If you do, you're never going to move on because you're always going to have a degree of fuzziness with the particular chapter that you're working on, and really it's just going to prevent you from moving to the next chapter. And so you really want to just keep moving on by not expecting perfection as you learn biblical Greek. Part of the reason for this perfectionist sort of tendency and the reason that this becomes challenging is that we tend to, Greek is a skill, and skills take time to acquire. Now, I did a little bit of time programming. When I first learnt programming, the first thing to sort of learn are a little bit about program loops. For loops, while loops, whatever it happens to be, right? Conditional statements, those kinds of things. But when you get into programming, you're going to find that those loops are really just like the bread and butter, and then there's other things you have to add on to that. Pointers and connecting to APIs and drawing data over the internet, stuff like that is not just for loops and conditional statements. There's a lot more to it. It's the same with biblical Greek. First time you go through a chapter, you're going to find, say, here's the nominative and the accusative. But then later on, you're going to find actually the nominative and the accusative can work in a whole bunch of different ways. And so you may not learn that the first time through. So just don't expect perfection. Pick up the main ideas as you go through the grammar and then move on, okay? The high degree of proficiency that you have in your job will come as you continue to hone the skills that you're learning in biblical Greek as well. So don't expect perfection. The second element of this is challenging the way you think about yourself is that you're going to have to expect to feel like a child as you go through beginning Greek. You're going to have to be doing silly things that you haven't thought you've had to do for ages. Things like reciting the alphabet, pronouncing syllables in a word, or even just sounding out a word phonetically so you can hear how it sounds. These are things you probably thought you'd never have to do again. Well, here you are, learning biblical Greek, having to do these kinds of silly things all over again. So expect to feel like a child. In fact, another silly thing you're going to have to do from time to time is to hit the like button on silly YouTube videos so that people know that this is a helpful video. But you know that when you do these silly things, be it hitting a like button on a YouTube video or reciting the alphabet or whatever, it's actually helping you, and in some cases helping others, because, you need to do those things to acquire that skill. So go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button as well if you haven't already done so. Another way that Greek is going to challenge the way you think about yourself is by causing you or challenging you to grow in humility. As you realize that you can't get this perfect the first time through, as you realize that you're going to be doing these things that make you feel like you're 3 years old again, it's going to make you grow in humility. And I want to encourage you to embrace this. In fact, I did a video talking all about this a few months ago, and you can find a link to that video just up here. But I want to encourage you to embrace this because Scripture talks about the need to grow in humility. Over and over in Proverbs, humility comes before honor. In Colossians 3 verse 12, put on a heart of humility toward one another. So humility is one of these things that Scripture says that we need to cultivate in ourselves, and learning Greek can be a useful tool to do that. So I want to encourage you to embrace these things, to allow Greek to challenge you about how you think about yourself and to use it to grow in humility. You will be blessed in the doing of that because this is one of those things that the Lord calls us as disciples of Christ to do. So learning Greek will challenge how you think about yourself. Learning Greek, secondly, is going to challenge the way you live. And it's going to do this again in 3 different ways. The first thing is it's going to challenge you to create a daily routine. Here's the thing. If you try to learn biblical Greek and you haven't really carved out a consistent time every day to do this, you won't succeed. It's just that simple. You really need to create a routine, a time of day, every day consistently when you can work on this. And not only that, I'll talk about this in a moment, but you're going to have to create a time of day for a long period of time, right? We're not talking about just through the first 3 weeks of beginning Greek. We're talking about for a long time. Now, granted, there are some parts of the Greek learning process that are going to take longer to go through and more time perhaps than others. For instance, if you're going through beginning Greek, you should expect to spend about an hour a day every day, maybe 5 days a week or 6 days a week, but pretty much every day I would say, working on learning biblical Greek. Now, the nice thing about it doesn't take 8 hours, it doesn't take 5 hours, really just an hour a day. Now, more or less from person to person. And again, you'll find a video from me talking about how long it takes to learn biblical Greek up here as well. So if you're interested in more information about that, go see that video. But expect to spend about an hour a day. So you have to carve out that time somewhere. And so I want to encourage you to actually create a routine that gives you that hour every day. And the best time to do this often is first thing in the morning, very early in the morning, about 5 or 6 a.m. Now, the reason for that, there's several reasons, but here's a couple. You're going to have your mind is going to be fresher, you're going to have fewer distractions, and the time is easier just frankly to carve out then because you don't have those distractions. So if you can carve out an hour early in the morning to do the work, or even better yet, 2 hours, an hour, and then visit some of those concepts again during the day if you can, you're going to be in a good position to be able to learn Greek. But this is going to require you to change the way you live a little bit. And Greek does that. It's going to challenge you to change the way you live. Secondly, This is going to challenge you the way you live by causing you and challenging you to work with technology. So I want to encourage you to work with the technology stack. We're not talking a lot of technology here. Really, all it takes is a smartphone or a Kindle Fire even, or an iPad or a tablet or something like that. If you can grab a hold of a device like that, it's going to make a huge difference. Now, in the old days, we used to use flashcards. And flashcards, honestly, they're awkward to use, they're difficult to hold on to, they spill everywhere. You know, if you want to review them, you're going to have to break them into multiple decks. If you want to review 1,000 words, that's a lot of cards. And it becomes quite cumbersome and really impractical over the long term. Technology helps you overcome that. Not only does the size of your deck not actually physically change if it's on your iPhone or Android phone or whatever you use, but not only that, it's actually going to allow you to do spaced repetition. So it's going to show you old words at the right time, so help you review and remember those. It's also going to allow you to use other apps, such as parsing apps, to, again, practice identifying words in different cases or in different tense forms or as participles or whatever it is. And so all of these things together help you to really learn the language in a way that you can't without the technology. So using technology is going to be helpful. If technology is something you normally avoid, then learning Biblical Greek will be one of those things that will challenge the way you live a little bit, because it's going to challenge you to use the technology. If you're younger or a technology person a little bit like I was, then this isn't going to be a big deal. But if you're not, then this will challenge the way you live as well. Now, of course, it's possible to learn Biblical Greek without technology, but it's just going to be that much more difficult. Speaking of technology, this video is sponsored by Logos Bible Software. Logos Bible Software have a whole pile of Greek grammars, beginning Greek grammars, and the workbooks available inside Logos. And so what you can do is you can then open them up, look at the grammar, and you've got the workbook, and you can type that in there as well anytime you need to. And you can take it with you. You've got your grammars on the fly with you, so you can look them up when you're struggling with parsing words and things like that as well. So if you're interested in purchasing a copy of Logos and you don't already have a copy, go to mntg.me/logos, and there you'll get 50% off the Fundamentals edition and a free book. Or 5 free books. Might be 5 free books. I can't remember. A bunch of extra books anyway that are going to help you set up your first library. So let's get back into it. So if you're willing to allow the process of learning Biblical Greek to challenge how you live, you'll do well. So far, we've seen two things. First of all, learning Biblical Greek will challenge the way you think about yourself. Secondly, it's going to challenge the way you live. Thirdly, it's going to challenge you to learn new skills. Now, obviously, you might be thinking, well, of course, I'm learning Biblical Greek. That's a skill. You've been saying that's a skill, Daryl. Isn't that a skill? Of course I'm learning a new skill. Well, yeah, but that's not what I mean here. There are going to be new things that you're going to have to learn in order to learn Greek. Okay? That's the way it is. These things are not grammatical. They're not syntactical. They are just other things you're going to have to learn. The first one is you're going to have to learn how to learn. Right? I don't know if you know this, but there are 3 different types of dominant learning patterns. Some people learn best with audible sound kind of learning, so they learn best by hearing somebody have something explained or something like that. Some people learn better visually, seeing things. So whether it be diagrams, whether it be visual on a piece of paper, some people have that amazing photographic memory. Don't we all wish we had that? And other people learn better by moving, by writing things out, by actually physically doing things. And so which one of those best describes you? And it could be that you're a combination of 2 or more, but one of them normally is going to be dominant. And so I want to encourage you, you're going to have to learn how to learn. This is a degree of thinking about the way you learn that you probably not had to think about for quite some time. Now, this actually has another role to play, because one of the things you're going to have to do to learn Biblical Greek is you're going to have to develop your own tools to help you learn. Here's what I mean by that. When I was going through beginning Greek and I was learning through Mounts at that stage, and there was all the stuff he was saying, you have to learn this paradigm, you have to learn that paradigm, and I'm like, how do you learn paradigms? So I had to figure this out. And what I ended up doing was I created a worksheet which I could fill in over and over to actually, so I'd write out these worksheets. And as I wrote those worksheets out, I would say the words. So there's the audible. There's also me moving. I would hear the words, right? So saying it, hearing it, I'd see it as I was writing it down, and I'm moving at the same time. So I'm using all of those different learning capacities to actually do this. But I had to develop this tool, this way of learning, to be able to do this. And so I want to encourage you too, to allow the process of learning Greek to challenge you to learn how you learn, and then to develop tools to help you to do that and to do it well. This is possibly one of the most difficult things and challenging things that people come to. They get into beginning Greek, they don't develop those tools, and they're just reading the text. They're looking at it on a piece of paper and hoping that the paradigms will stick, or that they'll just learn, the rules or whatever it is. No, you're going to have to do a lot more. You're going to have to develop the tools to actually master those skills yourself. Another new skill set you're going to probably have to learn as you go through beginning Greek is you're going to have to learn to adapt to the grammar that you're working with. The grammar that you're working with is not going to be perfect. I'm going to say that straight away because there's no such thing as a perfect grammar. They're written by imperfect people who learn differently to you and I and so on. And so the way they write and the things they write are not necessarily the only things you need, or perhaps the best way of writing it for your needs. The challenge here is going to be that you're going to have to be diligent to work through one grammar. And I want to encourage you to pick one primary grammar. You can supplement that one grammar with a second or even a third grammar if you want to, but have one grammar as your primary guide and work through that one grammar, regardless of its faults, regardless of its failings. Just do your best to work through that one grammar. Now again, you're not going to learn everything in that grammar. The point is not to get it perfect. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the goal here is just to keep making those consistent steps. That's the key. But be diligent. Learn to be diligent with the one grammar that you're working with. Let it guide you and finish it all the way to completion. Finally, the last element of how Greek is going to challenge you and the way you learn is going to be, you're going to have to challenge yourself and learn how to stay motivated. Because if the Greek grammar you're working through is difficult and you're learning all these new skills to figure out just what the author is saying and how the language works, then you're going to come to times when you just feel demotivated, you don't want to do this, I don't think I can do this. Let me just say this. This is perfectly normal. Everybody goes through this to some extent. The challenge is that when you want to give up, you're going to have to just remind yourself, why are you doing this? You're going to have to remind yourself of what you've already achieved as you've gone through this. And there's a couple of things you can do here. First of all, I want to encourage you, no matter where you are going through the process of beginning Greek, to give thanks for what you've already learned. Most people don't get more than 2 or 3 chapters into a beginning Greek grammar. So if you're more than 2 or 3 chapters in, give thanks to the Lord that you've managed to take more progress than most people. In fact, let me rephrase that. Most people don't even open a beginning Greek grammar. So even if you're at chapter 1, you can give thanks that you've opened a Greek grammar and you're starting to get to grips with the work and the challenge of learning the language that God inspired His Word in. So give thanks. Secondly, I want to encourage you to write down your goals. What is it that you are hoping to achieve by doing this? Write this out, remind yourself, and in fact, if you wanted to, you could write a different reason every week. Challenge yourself to write a different reason for learning biblical Greek every week. So you pile up a whole bunch of different reasons to keep you motivated. And I would encourage you to include character goals. I'm learning beginning Greek because partly I want to grow in Christ-likeness. Partly I want to grow in humility. Partly I want to know the Word of God better and be transformed by it. Character goals. These are also really important as well. And don't forget to include reasons about how this will help you serve others. So write these goals out to help you stay motivated. But this is a new skill you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn how to keep yourself motivated if you want to complete beginning Greek, particularly if you're doing it on your own or you're not driven by class grades. Okay? So these are the 3 ways that beginning Greek will challenge you. It will challenge the way you think about yourself, it will challenge how you live, and it will challenge you to learn new skill sets as well. So let me stop here and just ask you, if you've been through beginning Greek, what do you wish you'd known before you started learning biblical Greek? Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'd love to hear from you there. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for watching this video. It really is a great joy to be able to serve you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, keep taking small, consistent steps. We'll see you then.